June 12, 1944, 0640 hours, just west of Carentan, Normandy. The morning mist still clings to the hedgerows, thick enough to mute sound, thin enough to betray movement. Engines idle in low, uneven pulses. Inside a Panther tank of the 2nd Panzer Division, Oberfeldwebel Karl Henning presses his headset tighter against his ears and peers through the gun sight. Then he sees it. A Sherman. Not one, 3, then more. They emerge from the mist like blunt, boxy silhouettes, high-profile, slab-sided, thin-skinned. Henning exhales through his nose. You can almost hear the smirk inside the steel hull. Amerikanische Schrott, someone mutters. American junk. The Sherman has a reputation, and among German tank crews in 1944, it is not a flattering one. Henning had faced T-34s on the Eastern Front, low, fast, brutal machines that punished mistakes. The Sherman is different, taller, easier to spot, easier to hit. Its 75mm gun struggles against Panther frontal armor. Even the Tiger crews joke about it. A Sherman, they say, is not a tank, it's a target. The first Sherman crests a shallow rise, its tracks clattering loudly over broken stone. Too loud, too exposed. The Panther's gunner adjusts by instinct, muscle memory honed over years of war. Feuer. The Panther's 75mm KWK-42 erupts. The recoil slams back. The shell slices through the morning air and punches clean through the Sherman's hull. The American tank blooms into flame, black smoke clawing upward. The turret hatch blows open. Men scramble. Some don't. Inside the Panther, there is no celebration, just confirmation. The 2nd Sherman halts, smoke already pouring from its engine deck, hit by another German gun somewhere along the line. The 3rd tries to reverse, too slow. Another shot, another fireball. Henning allows himself a tight smile. This is how it always goes. You can almost feel the confidence settle in, the sense that whatever else the Americans have brought ashore in Normandy, their tanks are still behind the curve. Steel versus steel, Germany still knows how this ends. But then something strange happens. The radio crackles, not with panic, not with confusion, but with reports. Shermans destroyed, sector clear. Moments pass. Then, new armor approaching, same direction. Henning blinks. He leans forward. Through the thinning smoke, new silhouettes appear. Same shape, same height, same unmistakable outline. More Shermans. They advance cautiously now, buttoned up, supported by infantry hugging the hedgerows. Artillery thumps in the distance, American guns, heavy and precise. The air smells of cordite and crushed leaves. Henning feels a flicker of irritation, annoyance, not fear. More targets, he says. The Panther fires again, a Sherman dies again, and again, but the field does not empty, it fills. Shermans push forward in staggered waves. When one burns, another skirts around it. When 2 are lost, 3 more appear behind them. Recovery vehicles rumble in low ground, already dragging damaged tanks out of sight. Fresh machines roll in from behind the tree line, paint clean, tracks unscarred. Henning frowns. This is not normal. On the Eastern Front, tank losses sting. Vehicles are precious. A knocked-out Panther might sit abandoned for weeks waiting for parts that never come. A broken transmission can end a unit's effectiveness. Crews know this. They fight with it in mind. But these Americans, they do not hesitate. A Sherman is destroyed. The line pauses briefly. Smoke clears. Then it resumes, as if nothing was lost, as if the tank that just burned had never existed. Henning's loader wipes sweat from his brow. The radio chatter grows denser. Reports of fuel shortages from neighboring units. Panthers immobilized by mechanical failure. A Tiger somewhere east of Carentan is stuck. Final drive failure. No recovery vehicle available. Henning looks back through the sight. More Shermans.
not charging blindly, coordinated, covered by artillery, jabbed forward by radios that work reliably, consistently. Each tank part of a system, not an isolated duel. The laughter inside the Panther fades. Something is off. The Americans are not winning these fights by having better tanks. They are winning by having more tanks, and the ability to lose them without stopping. Henning feels it before he understands it, a subtle tightening in the chest, a thought he does not want to follow. He knocks out another Sherman, and another one takes its place, and another, and another. The field is littered with wrecks, but the line keeps advancing. Henning's gunner glances back. How many do they have? No one answers, because no one knows. And for the first time that morning, the idea creeps in, quiet, unwelcome, undeniable. What if destroying them doesn't matter? What if this is not a contest of armor, but of replacement? The Panther's engine idles, fuel gauge dipping lower. In the distance, more Shermans roll forward, their silhouettes steady, relentless, and the realization begins to form, slowly like smoke filling a sealed compartment. This war is no longer about which tank is better. It is about which army can keep fighting tomorrow, and Germany is running out of tomorrows.
The afternoon drags on, and with it comes a kind of grinding exhaustion that no amount of training prepares a crew for. Inside the Panther, the heat builds despite the cool Norman air outside. The engine has been idling too long. Fuel is being burned for nothing. Karl Henning knows it, feels it in the pit of his stomach every time the needle dips lower. He signals the driver to shut down when possible, to save what little remains. Silence settles, broken only by distant artillery and the crackle of the radio. Then the radio speaks again. A report from battalion command, short, clipped, stripped of hope. Another armored thrust expected from the west, American armor regrouping, estimated strength unknown. Unknown. That word lands heavier than any shell. Henning peers out through the periscope once more. The smoke has thinned, revealing a battlefield that tells a story no briefing ever could. Burned Shermans litter the lanes, yes, but so do German vehicles. Panzer IVs abandoned intact, half-tracks with hoods open, crews gone. A Panther in the distance sits motionless, its turret askew, victim not of enemy fire, but of its own final drive, tearing itself apart. The Germans are bleeding capability. The Americans are shedding equipment. There is a difference. You can almost feel the shift happen, not all at once, not dramatically, but like pressure building in a sealed compartment. The understanding spreads from crew to crew without words. This isn't about bravery anymore, or tactics, or even skill. It's about endurance. Henning remembers a conversation from months earlier, back in Germany before Normandy. An instructor had scoffed at American tanks. They build tractors, he'd said, not weapons. The class had laughed. Everyone had. Now Henning watches an American maintenance team work behind a hedgerow, men moving with speed and confidence, swapping out track links, checking suspensions, refueling under canvas nets. Their motions are practiced, routine, as if this chaos is something they expected, because they did. A new wave comes forward, not a reckless charge, but a steady push, tanks spaced, infantry riding hulls, artillery walking fire ahead of them with brutal accuracy. German anti-tank guns fire, knocking out another Sherman. The crew barely registers it, because the next tank rolls past the wreck without stopping. Henning fires again, a clean hit, another Sherman burns, and still the line does not thin. The realization tightens its grip. Germany can still win engagements, it can still destroy tanks, it can still kill crews, but it cannot keep doing it forever. Henning thinks of the factories back home, bombed, disrupted, rationed. He thinks of spare parts cannibalized from wrecks, of tanks held back because there's no fuel to move them, of orders delayed because radios don't work, because wires are cut, because planes rule the sky. Then he looks at the Americans.
Their radios chatter constantly, their artillery answers within minutes, their tanks arrive not as lone hunters, but as pieces of a machine that never seems to stall. A Sherman takes a hit and loses a track. Within an hour, it's gone, pulled back, repaired or replaced. The crew will be back in action by morning. Henning's Panther, by contrast, is one breakdown away from becoming another steel monument in a Norman field. Late in the day, the order finally comes. Withdraw. Not retreat, withdraw. A careful word chosen to preserve morale, but the meaning is clear. Fall back before fuel runs out, before air attacks resume, before the Panther becomes a stationary target. As the engine roars back to life, Henning takes one last look at the field. Shermans everywhere. Not elegant, not superior in any single fight, just present. And behind them, more engines, more dust, more steel. He understands it now, fully. The Americans didn't design the Sherman to be unbeatable. They designed it to be replaceable. And that makes it unstoppable. As the Panther pulls away, Henning knows something has crossed a line he cannot uncross. Germany is no longer fighting an army it can outmaneuver or outgun. It is fighting a system. And systems do not tire. They do not hesitate. They do not run out of tomorrow. Henning grips the edge of his seat as the hedgerows slip past. For the first time since the war began, he is no longer asking how to win. He is asking how long they can last. And the answer is already forming, heavy and inescapable. Not long.
The laughter fades quickly once the shooting starts again. By midday, the field west of Carentan is scarred beyond recognition. Burned hedgerows sag under drifting smoke. Sherman wrecks dot the lanes like discarded shells, some still smoldering, others already cooling into blackened hulks. Inside the Panther, the air is stale with cordite and sweat. Karl Henning's confidence has thinned into calculation. He checks the ammunition count. Lower than it should be. Fuel, too. The Panther was never meant for this kind of fight, not because it can't win individual engagements, but because it was designed for decisive battles. One thrust, one breakthrough, one moment where quality overwhelms quantity. But this is not that kind of battlefield. The Americans do not surge forward once. They advance, pause, regroup, and advance again. When a Sherman is disabled, recovery vehicles appear with unsettling speed. M31 tank recovery machines, cables taut, winches screaming, dragging damaged hulls back behind cover. Spare tracks and road wheels are swapped out in hours. Crews climb into replacement tanks as if changing uniforms. Henning watches through the periscope as a fresh Sherman rolls forward, its paint unscarred, its radio antenna stiff and upright. It is identical to the one destroyed an hour earlier. You can almost feel the irritation harden into disbelief. Across the radio net, reports stack up. Panthers immobilized not by enemy fire, but by breakdowns. Final drives grinding themselves into scrap. Transmissions screaming under weight they were never designed to bear. Tigers consuming fuel faster than supply trucks can reach them. And there are fewer trucks now. American fighter bombers roam overhead, prowling the roads like hawks. A single P-47 Thunderbolt swoops low, rockets streaking into a crossroads. A fuel convoy vanishes in flame. Somewhere behind Henning, a Panzer IV is abandoned, intact but empty. No fuel, no hope of recovery. The battlefield is no longer just tanks versus tanks. It is systems colliding. Henning remembers the briefings. He remembers the technical comparisons, armor thickness, gun penetration, engagement ranges, all the arguments that proved the Sherman inferior on paper. But paper does not replace a burned-out gearbox. Paper does not tow a disabled vehicle under fire. Paper does not refill fuel tanks overnight. The Americans do.
Another engagement erupts along the hedgerow line. A Sherman platoon advances with infantry close behind, radios crackling with coordination. German anti-tank guns open fire, knocking out one, then another. But the pressure does not ease. Artillery lands precisely, systematically. German crews are forced to relocate again and again, burning fuel they cannot replace. Henning hears a transmission from a neighboring unit, a Tiger crew requesting assistance. The Tiger is intact, the crew is alive, but it cannot move. No recovery vehicle is available. The road is under air observation. The order comes through, cold and final. Destroy the tank. Henning clenches his jaw as the Tiger's crew sets demolition charges, stepping back as their own machine erupts in a controlled blast. One of the most feared weapons of the war, gone without firing another shot. And still, the Shermans keep coming. Henning realizes something unsettling. The Americans do not care if they lose tanks today because they know they will have more tomorrow. Their tactics reflect it. They probe, they absorb losses, they adjust, they come back heavier. German doctrine never planned for this. Germany fights wars of precision and necessity. Every tank lost is a wound. Every crew killed is irreplaceable experience. For the Americans, loss is expected and compensated. Henning watches as a Sherman bails out under fire. Moments later, another Sherman slides into position and resumes the advance, using the burning wreck as cover. The message is unspoken, but unmistakable. This is not a duel. It is erosion. Each engagement shaves away German capability, while American capability regenerates almost instantly. Factories across the Atlantic hum without interruption. Ports unload day and night. Railheads feed the front with mechanical certainty. Henning has never seen war fought this way. He keys the radio, requests ammunition resupply. The reply comes back delayed, hesitant. Supplies are tight. Fuel is rationed. Hold position. The Panther's engine idles lower now, as if sharing the crew's unease. Henning scans the field again. More Shermans. Not reckless, not afraid. Persistent. And for the first time, the thought settles fully into his mind, not as fear, but as clarity. You don't beat this by winning fights. You beat this by stopping the flow. And Germany cannot stop the flow. The Sherman was never meant to be the best tank on the battlefield. It was meant to be everywhere. Henning watches another wave form up behind the hedgerows. He understands now why the Americans aren't slowing down. They don't have to, and Germany does. The realization is no longer theoretical, it's operational, and it is beginning to suffocate the men inside the steel hull. The Panther fires again, and somewhere behind it, another Sherman engine starts.
The withdrawal does not bring relief. It brings silence, and silence, Henning learns, is worse. The Panther crawls back through the hedgerows, engine kept just above idle to conserve fuel. The driver avoids sudden turns, avoids stressing the transmission. Every mechanical sound is listened to now, judged, feared. The tank is no longer a weapon. It is a liability that must be nursed. Behind them, the battlefield does not rest. American artillery continues to fall with methodical patience. Not frantic, not rushed. It is the fire of an army that knows exactly how much ammunition it has and exactly how much more is coming. Henning's radio crackles with fragments of reports. Another unit forced to abandon vehicles. A bridge lost to air attack. A fuel dump hit before it could be dispersed. The words come calmly, professionally, but the meaning beneath them is brutal. The line is thinning, and the Americans are not slowing. At a temporary assembly area, Henning's Panther halts beside two others. One is leaking oil. The other will not restart once shut down. Crews stand outside their machines now, helmets off, uniforms stained with sweat and dust. No one jokes, no one complains. They all see the same thing. Beyond the tree line, the road is alive with movement.
Columns of Shermans advance in depth, some moving forward, others turning off towards side routes, still others stopping briefly to refuel before continuing on. Recovery vehicles pass in both directions. Ambulances move steadily, not hurriedly. It looks less like a battlefield and more like a factory floor. You can almost feel the moment when the idea finally locks into place. This isn't chaos. This is flow. German doctrine never prepared them for this kind of war. The panzer divisions were built to break fronts, to exploit gaps, to force collapse through shock and maneuver. But there is no collapse here. When one American unit is hit, another fills the space. When one route is cut, 3 more open. Henning watches a damaged Sherman being towed away, its crew walking calmly behind it, helmets slung at their sides. They will eat tonight. They will sleep. They will be issued another tank. Tomorrow, they will be back. Henning looks at his own crew. These men have been together for months, shared battles, shared losses. If this Panther breaks, they will not simply climb into another. They will wait, or be reassigned, or sent back as infantry, or not sent at all. The radio announces new orders, another fallback line, another attempt to stabilize. The words are careful, measured, but no one believes they are permanent. Because every kilometer surrendered brings the same sight, more Shermans. Not because they are better, but because they exist in numbers that seem to erase the meaning of loss. Henning understands now why the Americans do not fear losing tanks. Their strategy does not hinge on perfection. It hinges on continuity, momentum, the certainty that whatever is destroyed today will be replaced tomorrow, and the day after that. Germany cannot match this, not in steel, not in fuel, not in time. As the sun begins to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the Norman fields, Henning feels something he has not felt since the war began. Not fear, finality. This is what it looks like when an army runs into something it cannot outfight. The Sherman was never the problem. The system behind it was. And that system is now rolling forward, mile by mile, day by day, with a patience that feels almost cruel. Henning climbs back into his seat as the engine restarts. The Panther lurches forward, retreating again. He no longer wonders how many Shermans he can destroy. He wonders how many more days Germany can afford to lose. And deep down, he already knows the answer.
Night does not bring darkness the way it used to. Not here. Not anymore. The horizon glows faintly, pulsing with distant fires and artillery flashes. Roads that once disappeared after sunset now shimmer with movement, headlights hooded, columns flowing steadily west to east. American movement, constant, relentless. Carl Henning lies half awake inside the Panther, helmet still on, boots pressed against cold steel. Sleep comes in fragments now. Every engine noise sounds like a warning. Every vibration feels like failure waiting to happen. At first light, the order comes down. Another reposition, another defensive line, another promise that this one will hold. The Panther moves again, coughing slightly as it takes a shallow ditch. Henning's driver eases it forward with painful care. No sudden throttle, no hard turns. The transmission has begun to whine, a thin, high-pitched sound that no one wants to acknowledge. They reach the new line and halt beside a cluster of trees. Camouflage nets are thrown over the hull. The men climb out briefly, stretching stiff limbs, eating cold rations. No one talks much. Then the sound arrives. Engines. Not a single roar, not the growl of one unit advancing. Many engines. Henning peers through binoculars. Dust rises beyond the hedgerows in long, continuous plumes. Shapes form, familiar shapes, too familiar. Shermans. Again. But something is different now. They are not rushing,
They are not probing, they are advancing with confidence, artillery already walking ahead of them, smoke rounds bursting precisely along the German positions. Infantry follows close, radios pressed to helmets, pointing, directing. This is not an attack, this is pressure. Henning orders the gunner to engage. A Sherman takes a hit and burns. The crew escapes. Another is disabled by a mine, another by a Panzerfaust from the hedgerow. And still, the line keeps moving. You can almost feel the futility setting in. Every German success is temporary. Every American loss is absorbed. The Shermans do not pause to mourn their own. They flow around wrecks, use them as cover, turn destruction into advantage. Henning hears a transmission from a nearby Panzer Grenadier unit. They're pulling back. Again. The Panther fires until the barrel is hot, then fires again. Ammunition dwindles, fuel drops, the transmission whine grows louder. Then, with a sickening jolt, the Panther shudders. The driver freezes. The engine still runs, but the tank does not move. Final drive. Gone. Henning closes his eyes for a brief second, not in panic, not in anger, but in recognition. This was always how it would end. The crew scrambles, radios are smashed, breach destroyed, charges set. The Panther that survived enemy fire succumbs to its own mechanics. As they run for cover, Henning looks back one last time. Shermans are already advancing into the space his tank once occupied, fresh, operational, unhurried. In that moment, standing in a field filled with smoke and noise and motion, Henning finally understands what the Americans have built. Not a better tank, a better war. And once you are fighting that kind of enemy, there is no maneuver clever enough, no weapon powerful enough to stop what is coming. The Shermans keep coming, and they will keep coming tomorrow.
If this story stayed with you, take a moment to let us know. A simple like helps this history reach people who may never have heard it. It tells the algorithm that these moments still matter. Subscribe if you want to stay with us. Here we uncover the moments in the Second World War when everything changed, when there was no return. These are not just battles. They are human realizations, sacrifices, and truths buried beneath decades of noise. If you feel comfortable, leave a comment. Tell us where you're watching from. The United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, or somewhere else entirely. Tell us if someone in your family lived through this war. You're not just watching a video, you're helping keep these memories alive. Because once the stories disappear, there really is no return. Thank you for watching.